Don in London, hello. It's May 10th. My video's all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour, or both in my case. My substance, alcohol, my behaviour could be equally addicted to people, places and things, trying to be perfect. Perfect with the right people, in the right place, with the right things. All the toys that we're allowed if we have the money and we work hard to get, I guess. That was me, trying to fit in. And I didn't know how to. I don't know why, but somehow I never felt like I belonged, simply because I didn't understand the full reason for being on the planet, that life simply has purpose and that we are here to enjoy and make the best of what is. So always living in a future, always imagining how it ought to be, and never really understanding that it was just as it might be. So these days, in recovery from the addictions to alcohol, people, places and things, and trying to be perfect, I fear less rather than fear life. So I don't have to be fearful on a daily basis, but I am reminded of my mortality and my lifespan quite often, like yesterday when I went to see my general practitioner and we reviewed my situation, which is about type 1 diabetes, clinical depression, and quite a lot of the side effects which come from those conditions around pain and other ailments too, from recovering from a broken foot or pulverized fracture of the foot, which has taken 18 months. And discussion of these things can lead me to feel quite inadequate because I'm far from perfect. And then I need to remind myself that I can make progress and do the best I can and try and follow the regimes to deal with type 1 diabetes as well as clinical depression. The two things go hand in hand, and they also go with recovery as well, because often in recovery we do get periods of depression, and that can be very low periods for quite a long time, or clinical diagnosis around upset in our chemistry set, that our chemistry isn't working quite as well as it used to. And for me, the endocrine system is very much impacted by type 1 diabetes, so the chemicals which are produced in the head to keep a balance in my emotional state, well, they can go off balance quite quickly. So I have to be careful about what's going on for me. And towards the end of the interview or consultation with the doctor, and I said, of course, some of the things I don't want to do. I don't want to take painkillers, which will hamper my understanding of my physical condition, and I don't want to take sleeping pills because of the insomnia which is created by one or two of the painful conditions I have, because I can't find a way to rest easy. And I said, I don't want to take them or go down that road because I'm in recovery from being addicted to alcohol. And he said immediately, have you been drinking? I said, well, not for 7 years. Oh, he said, well done. But, you know, the automatic reaction always is, sometimes, to go to the worst case scenario when you're a doctor. And of course, it made me want to pick holes in the consultation, which was quite good actually, because it gave me room to improve and room to get help. So it can be quite difficult. What seems matter-of-fact to a doctor may not feel matter-of-fact to the patient, who is going through quite a lot of difficult feelings and anxieties, especially late at night on your own. Although, if I get anxious at night, what do? I don't lie there and wonder, oh no, what's going to happen to me? Generally, I do something useful. I think it was Dale Carnegie said, if you can't sleep, get up and do something. And I feel he was right to an extent. But the problem is, if it's a long-term condition of insomnia, all we get is exhaustion, and that can be very wearing. So I'm very lucky to be part of a fellowship, and that fellowship is AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, which means if it's really bad in any particular way, if I don't feel right about me and my situation, I can go to a meeting of the fellowship, where what I see is what I get, where people try and share the truth of what they see for themselves, and share about their experience, strength and hope of what works and what doesn't work. So it's often in what doesn't work where people are feeling the strain of life, or the stress of life, which has become completely distressful, then I learn about what they're doing and what I might do myself. And through identifying with other people in terms of what I see is what I get in meetings, then I have a chance of keeping on with recovery. So continuous recovery, and it's coming up to year 7 soon. And the reason why I'm still here is because of fellowship. AA saved my life. But I don't speak for AA, because all those people who speak in meetings are unique and authentic. They speak for themselves where they will, and I do the same. And one of the things I know about AA is there are suggestions, but there are no laws or rules. So we work as best we can in fellowship around one primary purpose. And that primary purpose is covered on this little card here, the AA preamble. The preamble is shared at every meeting I go to, and I share it here because it slows me down. And it reads as this: Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So it's primary purpose, sobriety, as is mine. Primary purpose, be sober as best I can be, emotionally, spiritually and physically. And if I can do that, I can face life on life's terms. So emotional, knowing how I feel today in the moment, spiritual, being in the moment of now, and physical, being as best I can be with whatever is happening to me. And I'm not the only one with other conditions. And the good news is that we got them often in recovery because we're alive long enough to get them. So old age comes upon us all in many forms, or ailments along the way, or diseases which just don't go away. So I have 3 things to contend with. But the irony was yesterday that the medical professional was more interested in the type 1 diabetes, the clinical depression, followed by, are you sober? And in a way it's almost like it feels insulting to an extent that they need to ask the question. But of course they need to ask the question so they have a comprehensive understanding. Because if I were drinking with type 1 diabetes and clinical depression, I doubt I would last very long, because I would go back to full-blown addiction. I know that. There is no half measures and no halfway house for me. So I'm pleased that I can keep sober, so I have a chance at what I can do today. And the AA preamble makes it very clear. The fellowship is for sobriety, so that the rest of life can happen. And also on this handy little card, inside it are the 12 steps and 12 traditions. The 12 steps about being open and honest and willing to change on a daily basis, in the moment as necessary, and the 12 traditions about unity, service and recovery. And these are suggestions, they're not laws or rules. And if anybody's trying to force you into following their pattern of recovery, it's better to find other people to help you, because it's about being unique, authentic and an individual with freedom to choose in fellowship around sobriety, being sober so the rest of life can happen. So these steps, I'll just go through them very briefly. Step 1, which I covered in January, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. And if I ever feel that I am powerful again over alcohol, my life will get unmanageable. Then in step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And that power greater than ourselves, or for me, is anything which gives me wisdom, which I haven't got already. Experience, strength and hope from most sources comes from people, and that can be people in fellowship or outside it. But the restoration to sanity is not drinking so I get an understanding of what the truth is, and that I don't often know it. I'm full of belief and opinion, but I'm still working on truth and wisdom. It then says, step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. And as an agnostic, atheist and God believer in my life, depending on my life experience, I have to look to what do I understand God to be in my life. So I go with truth, love and wisdom. Pretty much as Gandhi suggested, it's the truth of what is. It's the ability to love and be loved back, and also to keep on learning wisdom from others and developing wisdom in ourselves. And also to know we're not omnipotent or godlike. We are simply a part of what is going on the planet. So if I remind myself, hand it over to the truth, love and wisdom of what's going on, I have a better chance of letting go my opinions and beliefs, which may be based on falsehoods or ignorance in me. Then in step 4, it's about made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves, a self-appraisal of assets and liabilities. And then in step 5, which I'm covering more of this month in May, admitted to God, to ourselves and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. So by getting it out and letting go and understanding what we did, why it happened to a large extent, and what was our part in it, and sharing it openly with another human being, means we stop being stuck in our secrets, and that we've released what was hurting us and hampering us from getting on with life. And then in step 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. The defects of character for me, extremes of fear, extremes of putting on a brave face, and extremes of ego, all about covering up, thinking I'm right, but based on fear. Because if you really knew me and found me, would you really want me or want to know me? So those are the extremes. And the same of step 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. So shortcomings for me, not enough courage, not enough faith, and not enough confidence. Again though, at extremes of courage, faith and confidence, which are just blind faith, courage and confidence, with no foundation, would be a defect in me. So there is a place of balance in having enough fear, but not being overwhelmed by it. Putting on a brave face sometimes to help and be helped, just so I can listen, or be listened to, and share, as in a doctor's consultation. And don't let my ego get in the way of help, by it being at an extreme. So I need enough courage, faith and confidence to keep on telling the truth about my situation, physical, emotional, so I can be helped. But if I just said, yes, everything's fine, I'd get nowhere, and I'd be covering up. So extremes of it'll be alright if I just do the right thing. I need to be on track doing the right thing, being sober first, and then seeing how life can turn out. And then in step 8, made a list of persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. From my step 4, what situations was I in, what happened, what was my part in it, how did I harm other people, and am I willing to make amends? It doesn't mean I go out to make amends to the rest of the world on some mission. It's about making a list and being willing to make amends. And then step 9, made direct amends to such people where possible, wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So getting feedback from a sponsor or a person with some wisdom, or maybe even more than one person, about how we may make amends and restitution, either in an emotional or financial or other way, which is appropriate, without doing further harm. So it's not about going around and saying, when I was 10 or 20 or 30 or 40, I did this, that and the other, and I've now come back to apologise. If I'm going to rake up harm from the past, I have to get consultation about whether that's a good idea or not. And then step 10 and 11 and 12, often called the maintenance steps. It says here, step 11, step 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So if things are going wrong or something's disturbing me in the day, I look at my behaviour, not the behaviour maybe what caused it or the other person's part in it. I just look at my part in it and see what I can do. And don't judge other people, because maybe they are only doing what they can. given the way the world works today. So it's not a perfect world, and different people operate in different ways, and so do organisations, and so do people around truth, love and wisdom. But that's just the way it is. So it's my part in it, and the freedom to choose to engage or disengage, to let life happen and work. Then in step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for His knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. So when we look for conscious contact with, for me, truth, love and wisdom, it's trying to put aside my personal wants or desires and look at the big picture of truth, love and wisdom, the impact on not just me but the people around me, and the impact I'm having on the world in my conduct. So that's important. And it is prayer and meditation, and it's about evoking good conscience in us. And everybody apparently has a moral code and good conscience somewhere inside them. Whether they listen to it or ignore it or deny it is a personal choice. But we make our own personal choice around that. And then in step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So all those 12 steps, practice these principles in all our affairs, is about sober living. And it's not as if it's a hard thing for most people. Most normal people have no problem with sober living. It's just that life can do them down as much as build them up. So the 12 steps give us back our freedom to choose how we live today. What a relief. But it doesn't mean it's easy, because we're changing old attitudes and behaviour into new attitudes and behaviour, keeping the good of ourselves and letting go old ideas, beliefs and opinions which were hampering our progress to live in the moment of now, spiritual connection. So when I read from these books like Daily Reflections, this one's one step a month, as I said, step 5 for May. It's very much about unsticking ourselves, or letting go our secrets which have been keeping us stuck, by expressing what we found in our personal inventory, or the fearless moral inventory, which really is a self-appraisal of what we did and who else was involved and our part in it. And we have to be aware that when we know we've got the 12 steps working for us, they also provide us with an absolutely wonderful way of judging other people. It's an excellent appraisal tool to appraise the behaviour, attitudes and where other people are coming from. And it can be very helpful and insightful, but at the same time we're only looking at what we do with these steps, not trying to impose them on other people, because then we put our ego and our godlike attitudes back into place. So it's easier if we look at how we behave in this world and how we are included, rather than excluding others or judging them. Although sometimes we do have to walk away from people, places and things and situations which are none of our business and we can't do anything about. Anyway, May 10th, free at last, it says. Another great dividend we may expect from confiding our defects to another human being is humility, a word often misunderstood. It amounts to a clear recognition of what and who we really are, followed by a sincere attempt to become what we could be, and what we are today actually. It goes on to say, I knew deep inside that if I were ever to be joyous, happy and free, I had to share my past life with some other individual. The joy and relief I experienced after doing so were beyond description. Almost immediately after taking the 5th step, I felt free from the bondage of self and the bondage of alcohol. That freedom remains after 36 years, a day at a time. So this person was 36 years sober at writing this. I found that God could do for me what I could not do for myself. And as I say, for me, God is truth, love and wisdom. And, everybody has their own idea of God. Everybody has their own idea of spiritual. And I tend to go with a lot of religious leaders who say that spiritual is the ability to cope with reality, live in the moment. So there is no superior form of spiritual, but maybe a better understanding of how to be in the moment and practice life in the moment for those who have more experience of it, and that's where I get my wisdom from, or wherever would I get it from. But as we see in life, as we get older, as the generations move along and we get more experience of life, we see that pattern unfolding for others. So when people get into fellowship early, I do rejoice and I admire them, but I don't put them on a pedestal. I like them and I love them, and that's the way it is. So for now, enough of me. That serenity prayer which helps me in any tight corner, or even in a joyous tight corner, to be able to be in the moment and understand what is possible and not possible, and the wisdom around it. I say the serenity prayer often, just to remind myself, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. For me, always just in the moment, and always today. Don in London, hello, and it's May 10th, 2009. My video is all about recovery from addiction. Addiction to substance or addiction to behaviour, or it could be both, addiction to a substance and behaviour associated with it. So what was my substance? Well, simply alcohol was the thing that got me in the end, and it took quite a long time, probably about 35 years, and I always kept company with those who drank, to do it socially or just to oblivion, and most often in the latter years when I was well on the road to a new discovery about how low life could go, I was very isolated in my drinking, and my behaviour was to isolate and obsess about, I don't want to be here anymore, and why is life so awful? And simply, I just didn't know my physical chemistry, my emotional state of mind, and I had no idea what spiritual might be anymore. And the odd thing was that in my youth I had a very firm understanding about spiritual, being in the moment and now, because I had a good teacher, and that was my mother. But unfortunately the other partnership in the teaching process as a youngster was an alcoholic as well, and that was my dad, and no blame, no shame. He didn't really realise what was going on, and he had a fear of life all the way through to his end, and he had a very shortened end, simply because he drank and smoked too much, or drank and smoked too much. Yeah, just that simple. So where am I today, May 10th, 2009? You know, I've just been doing hundreds of pages of amendments on my websites, and they go back quite a few years, and some are not relevant anymore as I've moved into the video production era of my my video logs. So I had to change them all, or put them away in storage. So there are some written bits and pieces still about, but mainly I'm concentrating on sharing a video message as it's the new medium. And I don't speak for anybody else but myself on this, but I share experience, strength and hope of my fellowship. That's Alcoholics Anonymous, which keeps me sober one day at a time. But before I go on to that, there's a big hoo-ha in the UK about MPs and their expenses, and they are defending themselves in the most awful way, trying to say that we only played the game because that's the way the game was played, and you know, regardless of whether the rules were right or wrong, they still played the game, and they left themselves open to all sorts of ridicule because of it. Now we can all do this, but the simple learning lesson is, where do we draw a line in the sand and start again? And I guess for me, in recovery from addiction or self-obsession, which is where I think most MPs are right now, worried to death what people might think of them, that was one of the big issues for me. So at the moment I'm okay, and I'm very sad for the MPs who have had to follow this route of remuneration, if you like, simply because those were the rules laid down by the Labour or Tory governments in the past. And what has it done? It's made a real mess. And you know, in terms of integrity, open, honest and willing to share their truth, they are backsliding and lying through their teeth, and they don't know it because they believe they are right, when in fact they're wrong. Anyway, that's me and my opinion. I'm allowed to have one. I mustn't go on too long about politics because this is about recovery, or is it? You know, the absolute truth of now is what I'm looking for, and that's my spiritual connection. So less denials, less filters about me and my life, and I well and truly got things upside down for me. I don't know what to say. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but you know, we need to find a way into recovery, and the way in recovery for me is AA, the fellowship. Helps me do everything I need to do, keep sober, and the rest will follow. I'm not in charge. I don't know who is in charge, but it certainly isn't me. All I can do is make better choices knowing what I know today. So the AA preamble, 700 meetings, 600 or 700 meetings in London every week. We say this at the beginning of each meeting. And remember, please, I'm speaking for myself. Everybody's unique and authentic in the fellowship. I don't speak for them, I just speak for me and how it impacts on my life. So the preamble goes, Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And I keep thinking to myself as I was saying that, our primary purpose is to stay on the truthful path and help other politicians to achieve truthfulness and openness and willingness to face the music. I'm being a bit naughty, but you know, people will hang on to things and not let go, because if they let go and face the truth, they have to say, yeah, we can't do this anymore. We need to change the way we are behaving, and if we don't change the way we're behaving, we won't find ourselves and we won't find our path. So I don't know, we can mix things up, can't we? Mix metaphors. So I use the AA literature here. I'm into 5 minutes now. Daily reflections. It follows the 12-step program through 12 months, so 1 step per month, and the 5th month, May, is all about sharing our fearless moral inventory with another person. Having shared it with God or good conscience, we share it with another person, so we start to understand that if there's a name for anything we have done, or the good or bad of us, then it's been done millions and millions of times before, and we're just human. And it says here for May, sorry, I get the right page, May 10th, free at last. Another great dividend we may expect from confiding our defects to another human being is humility, a word often misunderstood. It amounts to a clear recognition of what and who we really are, followed by a sincere attempt to become what we could be. And this applies to politicians as well. And it says here, I knew deep inside that if I were to be joyous, happy and free, I had to share my past life with some other individual, or the public if you're a politician. The joy and relief I experienced after doing so were beyond description. Well, I don't know if it's the same for politicians. They may feel a bit awkward about their stuff. And go on. Almost immediately after taking the 5th step, or is it the 5th Amendment? I can't remember. That's for Americans. I felt free from the bondage of self and the bondage of alcohol. And I felt, oh, if you're a politician, bondage of self-obsession, and the bondage of telling lies. That freedom remains after 36 years, a day at a time. I found that God or good conscience could do for me what I couldn't do for myself. And I wonder if that applies to politicians as well. So, you know, whether it's standards in public life or, you know, our own personal standards we're looking to live to, I think the gift is if we can actually find the truth of now, we have a better understanding. And sometimes if we hold our hands up and say, I've made a huge cock-up and mistake of this, and I wished I hadn't done it, now what do I do? Then, you know, you're open to finding forgiveness, either from yourself or from others. But there are consequences always to our actions, and, you know, standards in public life or standards in our own private integrity. We have to live with who we are and what we've done. And as Bill sees it, 1 page a day, as they fall out in a linear order here, it says self-respect through sacrifice. At the beginning we sacrificed alcohol, we had to, and if you're a politician you sacrifice the truth, you have to. or it would have killed us, but we couldn't get rid of alcohol unless we made other sacrifices. We had to toss self-justification, self-pity and anger right out of the window, especially if you're a politician. We had to quit the crazy contest for personal prestige and big balances, just like politicians. We had to take personal responsibility for our sorry state and quit blaming others for it. Yes, if you're a politician, you can't blame anybody else for it, because you're in charge. And are we in our choices? Were these sacrifices? Yes, they were, to gain enough humility and self-respect to stay alive at all, unless you're a politician, in which case you just turn into a snake. We had to give up what had really been our dearest possessions, our ambition and our illegitimate pride. And there they are all in the UK, puffed up and awkward, because the press has got hold of what they've really been doing with their expenses. But the gift in sobriety is to face up to the challenge of knowing ourselves the best we can. And if we do that, then we have a good chance to find our moral turpitude, whichever you like. But you know, that serenity prayer helps always. God, all in good conscience, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, especially if you're a politician. And then maybe you too could be in recovery from your own humbuggery. Oh well, there you go, a bit of politics. Sorry about that, it's just my outlook.